Well, I went and made the mistake of going up to the house today to give me a sandwich or something for lunch. And I watched some more Inner Tube. And I have got to tell you people, some of you have got to pull your heads out and start to think before any of this stuff's going to make sense to you. I mean, life is hard when you're dumb. And ain't nobody dumb. We're just hung up by attitude. We're hung up by attitudes like we think we're right when we haven't even paid attention to the facts. Or we're hung up by attitudes like, oh, that's way above my pay grade. I can't understand that. Or, yeah, let the experts analyze it and then I'll believe the experts. Then you got 14 different experts with 14 different opinions, and you got a group of people sitting around the jolly campfire on the inner tube, whatever the forum is, arguing about who's right. I got pissed when I was up there today because we got two people arguing about who's more right, Harold Vaughn or Tony Boyer. And I gotta call bullshit, people. Tony Boyer is perhaps the best accuracy shooter that's ever graced us on this planet. A lot of the people on the forum shoot with him and know him. He beats them. He's the best. Over on the racing side, there's a guy named, I'll just pick one because I don't know any of them, John Force. Good driver. Over in golf, there's that Woods dude. Tigger. The wonderful thing about Tigers is Tigers are wonderful things. Tigger Wolf. They're good at their jobs. Another guy over in the Olympics runs really fast and eats chicken nuggets. So friggin' what? Trying to say one of them is smarter than the other is retarded. But by the same token, if any one of them has got an education, then by all means give him credence for it. Mr. Bean is in the news right now as we speak for the last 2 days because Mr. Bean just unloaded on EVs and electric cars. Now he's a liberal little piece of crap from the most liberal nation on the face of this earth. The ones that have had to practice, well, I won't say, there's a couple more in contention right across the border from them, but the point is they've been trained to be stupid. They've been trained to not think for more years than we have. But people, we are perilously close to falling off this cliff. The reason Mr. Bean is in the news, the reason Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson, is getting some press is because after 20 years of supporting electric cars and doing the whole liberal Mr. Bean supports electric cars thing, he's finally ditching on him a little bit because the unfortunate affliction that Mr. Bean has is that Sir Rowan the Atkinson is rational. The only way you can master your craft to the point he has, and frankly, I don't appreciate Mr. Bean. I don't think Mr. Bean's funny. I think he made me laugh 4 times, and then as he replays these same social faux pas and ridiculous facial expressions, they just get repeated. But, Mr. Bean has a keen sense of social consciousness. He's also got a keen sense of his place and his worth in the world, and he understands the stupidity of the common man. This is worthy, if you know who Mr. Bean is. Go search Mr. Bean meets a guy in the shop, whatever they call him over there. We call him a supermarket. They don't. He meets a guy, says, "Hey, you look just like Mr. Bean." "Huh," he says, "that's funny. I've had others tell me that." And finally he tells the guy, well, it's because my name is Rowan Atkinson. And then the fight started. You are not. You're never Mr. Blah, 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 blah. So he knows how set people are in their ways, if anybody does. But unfortunately, he also knows he's a driver. He's a race car driver. He knows the game don't lie. Above and beyond all that, the poor, solitary sod in England, of all places, actually has an engineering degree. He's actually got 2 brain cells to rub together. He actually is incapable of being deluded or of deluding himself or of deluding others for extended lengths of time without coming clean. He's not a Neil deGrasse Tyson to whom facts and opinions are indistinguishable. Rowan Atkinson has a brain. And Rowan Atkinson went to school and got a background to back up that brain. And unfortunately, he's looking around, he's going, hey guys, we're not saving the planet here. These electric cars aren't saving the planet. Thinking you all have access to the same info. And it frightens me. The Sir Arthur Conan Doyle books, the Sherlock Holmes books, have been around for a long time, and they only always have appealed to a small segment of the population. Benedict Cumberbatch, a couple, 5, 6 years ago, kind of set the bar higher by playing that part to the point that it intimidated 9/10 of the people that watched it. 9/10 of the people that watched the Sherlock Holmes story as told by Benedict Cumberbatch hated it. It made them feel like worms. It made them feel like mindless children, and they couldn't deal with it, so they lash out. People, you gotta stop that. When grown adults are arguing on the internet about who's more right, Harold Vaughn or Tony Boyer, you're like 3-year-olds in the sandbox saying, my dad can beat up your dad. You gotta leave the sandbox. You're a dad now. There's so many subjects in this. The subject that sparked this debate on the inner tube that got me so worked up has to do with barrel torque. The stupidest question I've ever seen posed. It's like, it bothers me to even repeat this. It's so stupid. It's like asking, when I poo, should I scratch it off with my hands and flick it in the water and wash my hands, or should I use toilet paper? People, if you're wiping your butt with your fingertips and wondering how to clean your fingernails, you haven't learned proper personal hygiene. We need to start all over. And there's so much of that sort of thing. The question posed, in all seriousness, this barrel torque thing's been going on now for months on some of the shooting forums. And the question keeps cropping back up. Should I take my torque measurements with a lubricated joint? Or should I just put them together dry and rusty? Most of you are adults by this point. You have wives, you have children, you have frictive things that you can compare. You have frictions you can talk about. The only thing Repeatable is not 7 different grades of rust on 7 different alloys that have been subjected to oxidation over 7 different time frames. They are get rid of all that crap, clean the rust off, and lubricate the joint. Because, people, you have got to learn what the function of that joint is. Again, I lose it when 10, 15 minutes of my life goes whittling away downwind. And I find out that 7 of the 8 protagonists in this argument are presenting their argument in the light of, I've been shooting for 28 years. And another guy steps in, I've been shooting for 32 years, so I know more than you do. And they get into a minor side argument about who's the smartest because they're not shooting the longest. But they all agree that ain't none of them yet this whole time ever shot a barrel loose. So why even have this? Or, well, number one, you dumb I just about said the S word there. Don't want to do that. If you screw a barrel into a system with a right hand twist and you slap it down or tighten it down with your fingers, as you shoot it, it shoots tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. You can't shoot it loose, you dumbass, because it's right-handed thread. There's no force there to shoot it loose. Secondly, barrels shoot tight. If you don't know that, pardon your ignorance. Go out and do some testing. In simple fact, you can draw index marks on hand-tightened barrels and they shoot tighter and tighter and tighter. How did they do that? You got to ask yourself, but I'm so sick and tired of saying you got to ask yourself, because people just refuse to ask themselves, so I'm going to tell you. They shoot tight because when the bullet slams into the riflings, it pulls the joint open, it imparts a little twisting stress. As the pressure falls, the joint collapses back together, and the residual momentum of that twisting stress tightens the barrel. Now, if you don't believe that barrels shoot tight, I'm sorry, you're too dumb to be in this argument. Because that's just not fact. I see this all day. I've got sisters that I don't bother to talk to anymore because they don't accept fact. They simply do not understand the difference between fact and opinion. They believe to the core of their beings that any opinion is equally valid. They don't believe that airplanes fly. They don't believe that trains train. They don't believe that scientists scientists. They simply do not believe that smart people run this place and the rest of y'all can go suck eggs. You're nothing but skin tags riding along on the big dog. But the least you could do, is quit kicking the dog. So when these people kick people that are smarter than them, it infuriates me. So I've got to tell you, barrels tighten. If the threads were going the other way and the riflings were going the other way, they'd shoot loose. But never, under any conditions, is that the reason that we tighten barrel joints. I've explained this before. And I feel like I'm just spitting against a block wall while the tide comes in to wash it away. It's amazing how many people don't. Let's say this one more time. Tightening your barrel is not about whether the barrel's going to fall off, you dork. A threaded joint, I'm going to run this down and show you a few things. I don't know, I just got some threaded. I'm not prepared here. I'm so far from prepared, I don't even know why I did this. But I know why I did it, because I drawed some pictures. So I'm going to quit grinding away here, and I'm going to show you what I did draw. I'm going to turn this off. Should have probably had it off the whole time. I just ran some numbers. I skipped a few steps here. But the question at hand is twofold, I guess. First of all, what is loosened by the... I go on and on. I show ways I tighten. I tell you flat out that a 20 TPI exerts way more closure force than a 12 TPI, and how I have to run 250 pounds on this joint, it just nobody hears it, because I look on the inner tube and I see the same stupid arguments being proposed. In simple fact, I'm making muzzle brake parts here, so I got parts that are canted over at an angle. See if I can find a couple that look useful. I think we can all agree that if I take this and I run a... Boy, I don't even know how I could possibly do it. Because I'll have to use a little scrudimus. I run a scrudimus in that side and I run a scrudimus in that side. And if I were to put a nut on here, now I'm going to try to keep this so simple, people. If you're not offended by now and clicked off and left, then watch carefully, because now you're going to learn something. So, I got these, well, pretend I screwed these together. If I screw them together not very tight, then you can yank them and you can spin them, okay? You can get the joint to slip. The tighter you go, the tighter that joint locks up. Basic. Hook onto here, tighten up as tight as you can, you start yanking at some, whoops, I think I might have just screwed that all up going up out of the camera. But the point is, if you try to pull on this hard enough and try to spin it, at some point, no matter how hard you tighten that, you're going to stretch this and get it to move. It's going to move and reset. Now, it might bend the tabs. This is what engineers do. This is science, people. This is exactly how tricky and difficult science is. Not really very. You know, you can handle this. You don't need a degree. So there's a joint. The simple fact is, if you exert enough pressure, you stretch that bolt. That's what it really comes down to. You stretch that bolt. Stretch it, and the barrel, or the two pieces, can stretch and reset, stretch and reset, stretch and reset. Now they're pretty tight again. But every time you hammer that or you pull on that, or whatever it is that you do, you open that joint. Now you pretend that that's a barrel. And it's going into an action. I don't have any of the correct props because I don't care. You people can learn from this, or you can go back into your stupid fantasy worlds and think that barrel torque is about the barrel getting loose. No, it's about the fact that if you push on this joint hard enough, whether it's two hands on the outside, whether it's a great big pump jack pulling or pushing, or whether it's the force inside the gun pounding on the end of that barrel, pretend that this little wee thing is a barrel. It's a .0 caliber, blah, 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 blah. Boom! This is a gun action. Doesn't look like it, does it? But it pushes on this barrel and it loosens this joint. And at some point, you exert enough force here that the joint will loosen up and the barrel will normally go up, and it'll only rotate if it's real loose. Once it gets tight, what'll happen, this is the way threaded things work. Forget any talk about joints and whatever. There's a necessary amount of play in here. I can go like this and I can get side-to-side motion out of it. And now on the action and barrel assembly, you got two butting, they're called abutting surfaces, but they're butted together. When they stretch and they reset, yes, sometimes they'll rotate, but most often they'll just stretch and then they'll roll a little bit on those threads. Remember, I did this a while back on die locking rings, and they got 7 thousandths of cock in them, 7,000, 8, 12 thousandths sometimes of offset. You go jerk this apart and move it over a thou and drop it back into the barrel out there, right here, 100 yards from the target, 1,000 yards. Let's just stick with 100 yards from the target. That's thousandth. You gain, well, I don't want to do the math. You get it or you don't. The resetting is like, here's the problem. This is where my blood started to boil. You get these goobers that come on and say, well, who's Harold Vaughn anyway? What he ever win? Harold Vaughn don't know nothing. Even Harold Vaughn's so dumb sometimes. I mean, my PPC runs 70,000 PSI and this big old BMG over there only runs 50,000 PSI, and any nut can understand that PSI is equal and this is... No, people. As the bore gets bigger, as the bolt head gets bigger, as the force applied is applied to a larger and larger area, it exerts more force on the joint. Pull your head out of your posterior and listen to the Harold Vaughns of the world. I don't give a rat's ass what Tony Boyer thinks about physics. He's not a physicist. He's a shooter. And he's a great shooter. And he's knowledgeable about certain things. But he ain't no brain surgeon. So, let's see. Tony Boyer against Tiger Woods. Which one is smartest? If we're going to talk about microfiber cloth, which... Would you people listen and understand that there's drivers and there's builders, there's engineers, there's validators, there's mechanics. They all have a place. But in simple fact, Jack. Let's look at this for a second. And I could spend all day explaining this, but I've learned over and over that it either goes click in your brain hole or it don't. Did some stuff up here. There's about 40 different steps in between. Pounds of actual force applied to the barrel joint. That means trying to upset the barrel joint. PPC. I used 50,000 pounds throughout. This is for illustration purposes only. That little case head is 0.038 square inches. The BMG is clear up here at 0.138 square inches. You can skip all the steps in between. But let it be known as fact that a PPC running at 50,000 pounds and 038 bolt face exerts 1,900 pounds of actual force. At 50,000, there's only 1,900 pounds of force to disrupt that joint. In between, there's the 308, there's the Magnum, there's the Lapua. Lapua bolt face in the exact same system, just chamber it to a Lapua bolt face. The 1,900 pounds goes up to 3,400. Then the BMG is a 6,900. 7,000 pounds versus less than 200. There's a difference, people.